If you move into a new country and you're staying probably medium to long term, then one of the things you're most likely going to think about is banking in that country. And being in a foreign country where banking works different to your home country, and especially if there's a foreign language involved, can be pretty daunting. So if you move into Spain, you've started to think about banking in the country and you're looking for some ideas or some information to point you in the right direction, then this is the video for you. We're going to talk about banking in Spain in general, what are the major banks in the country, what's on offer, and what you should keep in mind when making your decision of where to bank. Let's get right into the video. If you're new here, my name's Jonny. I'm originally from the UK, but I've been living and working in Madrid for the past 4.5 years, and I'm also a personal finance content creator. And as such, after moving to Spain, I spent a lot of time learning about the best deals, the best offers, and the best setup for my personal finances in Spain. So let's start with some general banking information about Spain. Now in Spain, there are 3 types of banks. There are the traditional brick and mortar banks, which now have existed over a long time, and many of them are still present today. The biggest ones in terms of assets in the country being Banco Santander, BBVA, CaixaBank, Banco Sabadell, and Bankinter. In the past, there were a lot more banks in Spain, and there were also kind of smaller rural banks known as cajas rurales, where the incentive of pursuing shareholder interests and making profit wasn't necessarily as big as in the bigger banks. But following the 2008 crisis and as the banking sector has evolved, a lot of banks have either been acquired or have merged with other banks. Probably the most recent and the biggest example is when CaixaBank acquired Bankia, which was another big bank in Spain prior to the acquisition with CaixaBank. And so a lot of the banking in the country is primarily centered around these bigger players, with the smaller banks playing a lesser role. However, in recent years, you have also had the entry of digital banks, online banks, and neobanks, which some of the bigger banks have launched these offers themselves, and some of them have been, for example, European fintech banks that they've launched in other countries, and then they've expanded into other European markets, with Spain being one of them, and we'll talk about some of them again a bit later in the video. In Spain, there is a deposit protection scheme up to 100,000 euros, which is the amount that is pretty much the same in every other EU member state, guaranteed by the Banco de España, Bank of Spain. In case a bank goes under, then any money you have deposited in a bank up to that amount is covered by the deposit protection scheme in the country. That said, the credit ratings agency's outlook for many of the Spanish banks is positive and with a stable outlook in the future, meaning that though liquidity and insolvency issues can't be ruled out in the future, they are nevertheless unlikely. If you're coming from outside the EU or the EEA, then Spain is part of the SEPA area, which is the Single European Payment Area, which means that transfers within Spain and within the EU are processed by the SEPA network, and typically these transfers are processed within 1 working day. So for example, if I make a transfer on a Tuesday, probably by the Wednesday, the recipient will have the money. If I make it, however, on a Friday or on the weekend, then it's most likely going to be the Monday, possibly even the Tuesday, when the recipient will get the money. You can, however, in pretty much all circumstances, make urgent or instant transfers for a fee, where the money will be transferred across in the exact moment that you make the transfer. So now let's talk a little bit about what's on offer in terms of banking. Now, this is going to focus mainly around, current accounts and regular banking, but I will touch a little bit on mortgages, insurance, and investing products as we go through as well. Now, what I'm about to tell you is based on me looking through all of the major banks' websites, doing searches in English, setting the website to English, and seeing what's on offer for the average foreigner. And so what I concluded from looking across everything is that pretty much all the major banks in Spain have some kind of offer for foreigners, whether they're residents in Spain or non-residents. That's to say, if you're a foreigner and you're living in Spain, then you can go to a bank and open a bank account there. Or if you're a foreigner, but you maybe have interests in Spain, such as a property there, then you can open a bank account in Spain as a non-resident. As one might expect, the process of opening a bank account is typically going to be easier for someone who is a resident in Spain compared to a non-resident, because someone who's a resident in Spain will likely have more documents proving residency, such as, a tax ID as well. Come to this a bit later in the video, whereas it's something that a non-resident may not necessarily have. In addition, someone who's resident in Spain may even be able to do the entire process online, whereas someone who is not resident or doesn't have their residency document secured yet may find themselves having to go into a bank branch to do things in person. When it comes to fees such as maintenance fees, transaction fees, account charges, a lot of the traditional banks do still have them, but they are becoming less and less, and in many cases, if you meet certain criteria, then they will waive some or all of the fees. Some of the criteria might be related to your age, it might be related to having a payslip going into your bank account, it might be related to other products that you have with the bank, such as insurance or a pension plan or an investing product, for example. Also, as one might expect, these commissions, maintenance fees, etc., are typically higher with non-resident accounts as well, and they may offset some of the benefits that a non-resident account offers. It's not all bad news though, as some of the banks do have some interesting offers to try and bring in new clients, such as remunerated accounts in the case of Unicaja and Bankinter. And if you don't speak Spanish and you're concerned that language language could be a barrier, then there are banks as well that offer customer service in other languages. For example, Bank Inter offers customer service in English. CaixaBank also offers in English, as well as with French, German, Italian, and Russian. And some banks also don't require as much documentation as others. For example, Sabadell Bank may allow you to open an account with just your passport if you're still waiting for your residency card. Do keep in mind though that the fact that some of these services are on offer can be reflected in higher commissions and higher charges to the customer as well. So it is something you have to weigh up and think carefully about when deciding which bank is right for you. Pretty much all the big banks also offer a basic payment account within the EU as well, which is low commission and low cost. However, it is pretty much restricted to EU customers and people operating within the EU. And you may not have a wide range of operations that you can perform with that bank account as a result. As I said earlier in the video, a lot of these banks also offer mortgages, insurance, and investing products that are accessible for foreigners or expats as well. They may offer home insurance, life insurance, pension plans, a stockbroker account, fixed or variable rate mortgages if you're trying to buy a home and finance the purchase as well. When getting a mortgage, if you go to a bank where you already have an account, you may be able to get better conditions with that mortgage and you may have more room to negotiate as well. That said, don't be afraid to shop around and look at other banks as well, because there might be something better out there, or there may be less stringent conditions in order for you to get a reduced rate on your mortgage. And in terms of investing products, I'd say that the pension plans on offer are broadly similar. You know, you can maybe choose one fund in one bank that is perhaps a little bit different in another, but the conditions under which a pension plan works is broadly similar. Think of perhaps, you know, investing in a fund with a particular bank or a particular broker in the UK as part of your ISA, or maybe in the US if you got your 401k in different institutes. Then, you know, pension plans in Spain, it has the same rules, but what is allowed within that pension plan, you know, the funds can vary between banks. There's not much difference, to be honest. And for everyday investing, I typically don't use the brokers on offer with the Spanish banks because I find that there are still transaction costs, and there are also, you know, sometimes custody fees for you having assets in a particular bank, or even, you know, fees on receiving dividends. And, you know, when there's brokers online like DeGiro, Trading 212, Interactive Brokers that don't have some of these high commissions or some of these custody fees, then for me it just doesn't make sense to have an investing account in a Spanish bank. Now, if you're a bit concerned by potentially high fees, charges, and documents that you'll need for an application at a traditional bank, don't panic, because in the past few years, neobanks, digital banks, and other European fintech companies have burst onto the scene and are really giving some of the traditional banks a run for their money when it comes to, you know, costs and fees. Just to give you an example of a few that are available in Spain, you have ING, which is originally from the Netherlands, but is present across a lot of European countries. We have Openbank, we have P-Bank, and we have Evo Banco as well. As I say, many of these online banks are very competitive in terms of commissions and fees. Many of them don't even have them at all when it comes to opening an account. And a lot of them also have welcome offers or prize draws on a semi-regular basis, you know, to make it worth your while and to try and capture new clients in Spain. And though many of them are new and you may not necessarily be familiar with them, there are quite a few of them that are actually backed by some of the traditional banks. For example, Openbank is actually Santander's digital bank, and Evo Banco is Bank Inter's digital bank as well. So you can see that even the traditional banks are starting to branch into this space and are seeing the value of low-cost offers and competitive online banking. And because they're online banks, a lot of them don't have a physical presence, and pretty much everything can be done online, which that can be a good thing, and it can also be a bad thing. On one hand, you can do pretty much the entire sign-up process from your home. You can submit digital copies of your documents and open an account, you know, in a matter of minutes. You got your customer service all on the phone as well, but of course that means that there is no physical customer service that can help you with any issues. You do have to, you know, speak to someone on the phone or go through some kind of online chat maybe to reach out to someone if you need help as well. Also, if you're someone who likes to use cash as well, then perhaps an online bank is maybe not the best, because when it comes to withdrawing from a cash point in Spain, there are sometimes commissions involved if you're withdrawing at a bank that is not your own. For example, if I have a Santander bank card and I go to CaixaBank, then I may have to pay commissions on the cash withdrawal. However, with the likes of Openbank and the likes of Evo Banco, for example, where they're backed by some of the bigger banks, then in the case of Openbank, you can go to a Santander cash point and you can withdraw cash commission free at a Santander cash point. But these aren't the only online and digital banks on offer for people moving to Spain as well. You've also got the likes of Wise, Revolut, N26, where you can have multi-currency accounts in the case of Wise and Revolut. In the case of Revolut and N26, you can also have a Spanish IBAN as well. And you may even be able to open some of these accounts without being physically in Spain. You may even be able to do it from abroad in advance of a move to Spain. Or again, if you're a non-resident, you can maybe open an account from abroad and not have to worry about being in Spain. So some of these accounts may be a bit easier. However, in my opinion, these accounts are probably more beneficial for someone who is perhaps, you know, a traveling freelancer or a digital nomad, someone who is not based in Spain full time, who maybe spends part of the year in Spain or who maybe makes, the occasional visit to the country. Probably if you're staying in Spain longer term, then looking at a Spanish bank account may be a better idea, but personal preference. So now that you know what's on offer, I'm going to give you my thoughts on how to choose which bank is right for you. My first suggestion is to take a bank where you're not going to pay commissions. There are enough offers across the banks for you to be able to do this, and in my opinion, no one should be obliged to pay bank commissions in 2024. Second tip, very important, absolutely make sure you understand the terms and conditions that are associated with the account, because if you don't, you could get burned in the future with unexpected fees, complications, etc. I spoke about, a nightmare I had because I didn't read the terms and conditions of my French investing account properly when I lived back in France. If you don't speak Spanish, get someone at the bank to explain the terms and conditions to you in English. At least have them read out what are the key points, the most important things to keep in mind, and don't be afraid to ask any questions as well. Look at the documentation that's needed to open an account and make sure that you have it as well. It's no good going to open a bank account and you realize, oh, I don't have a NIA yet, so I can't open it. Obviously something very important that you need to keep in mind. The fourth one, something I could have maybe touched on earlier in the video, is if the banks have Bizum, so B-I-Z-U-M integrated. Now Bizum basically is like a mobile integrated payment service. Let's say I go out for dinner with my friends, my friend pays 20 euros for dinner and my part of the bill was 8 euros. If I have an online bank and I've registered my mobile number in Bizum and my friend has as well, then I can simply go into my online bank, put in 8 euros as a Bizum transaction, put in my friend's mobile number, and he'll receive 8 euros instantly. Very simple, very convenient. And so if you think that service could come in handy, if you've got a lot of Spanish friends or people who've been living in the country long term and have Bizum and you go out a lot, or you're going to be making quick transfers, small payments maybe to people, then having Bizum is a very handy thing to have, and you typically only will find it in the Spanish banks. So if something like that is important to you, be sure to ask if it's included in your offer when opening a bank account as well. Customer service, of course, is important. Being aware of what is available in what language, what are the hours of customer service, is it 24/7, is it only normal business hours through the week, understanding when you might need to speak to someone and being aware of when you'll be able to speak to someone when something goes wrong. And the last point relates mainly to the neobanks, or if you're coming from another EU country and you don't feel like opening a Spanish bank account. For example, say you're coming from France, you're staying in Spain for a while and you just want to use your French bank account, or if you've got a neobank with Wise and you've got a Belgian IBAN as a result. A Spanish IBAN will generally make your life a bit easier, but at the same time, don't feel obliged. And if someone tries to refuse you a service on the basis that your IBAN is not from Spain, on the consumer finance section of the EU website, you'll see that IBAN discrimination, such as I just explained, is actually illegal. And if you do face that while you're in Spain, then you should file a complaint with the competent authority, which in this case, I believe would be the Bank of Spain. Those are my tips, guys. I hope you found them helpful. Leave a comment and let me know, are you living in Spain or are you thinking of moving to Spain? And who are you banking with, or who are you thinking of banking with? Till next time, I'll see you on the next one, and let's get this money.